Today we're going to talk about why the narcissist might stop hoovering. Has their opinion of you really changed? Is it because the new supply is somehow better? These are all questions we ask ourselves, and we're going to explore them in today's video, so stay tuned. Welcome to the Common Ego community. My name is Christina, and on this channel we talk about emotional abuse, its connection with spirituality, and we attempt to answer the question, where do we go from here? So if that all sounds good to you, be sure you're subscribed so you don't miss a thing. Today we're talking about why the narcissist stops hoovering. Now, before a narcissist stops hoovering, they have to hoover in the first place. So if you're dealing with a fresh discard and you're not sure whether you're going to get a hoover or not, you should know that not all narcissists do. So that could have a lot to do with their style and not as much about the stuff that we're going to talk about here today. But still, we're going to cover this from a few different angles, so there's going to be some relevant information for everyone who's dealing with hoovering or suspecting that they might deal with hoovering in the future. Okay, so just a quick refresher for those of you who might be new to all of this. Hoovering is a term that comes from the vacuum brand of the same name, and we use it when we're talking about emotionally abusive people like narcissists who are abusive and then they discard and then they suck you back into all the nonsense again with what we call a hoovering attempt. Now, to understand why a narcissist might stop hoovering, it's important not just to understand why they hoover in the first place, but to understand what attracts a specific person to a narcissist, or why a narcissist is attracted to a certain type of person. So I have a video about how a narcissist tests new supply, and that goes more in depth on what a narcissist might be looking for in a new target. But for the purposes of this video, we're going to keep it simple and say that a narcissist looks for signs of codependency. They're looking to find somebody who is going to put up with the kind of stuff that they're going to bring to the table. Now, some people believe that narcissists do this intentionally, that narcissists will say, I'm looking for somebody who is codependent. I want somebody who has these specific weaknesses that I'm going to exploit. Now, I personally believe that most narcissists do this more instinctually. They have this deep need for supply, and that's what drives their action. But to be honest, the reasons don't matter. What matters to us is that we know what they're looking for, consciously or unconsciously. That we know what they're looking for so that we can strengthen ourselves and work on those vulnerabilities so that they're not so attractive to somebody who is looking to exploit them. So what I'm saying here is that the best defense against a narcissist, whether it's somebody you haven't met yet or somebody who has abused you in the past and is coming back for a hoover, or you suspect or fear might be coming back for a hoover, your best defense is to work on you. Work on those boundaries, work on that self-love, and then by the time the narcissist decides whether they're going to hoover or not, it doesn't matter, because if they come back once, they're not going to come back twice or 3 times, because your boundaries will be strong. So they're not going to keep coming and trying to break them down when there are easier sources of supply elsewhere. And for those of you who might be hoping that the narcissist comes back, you probably already know this about the specific person in your life. If you've been through these cycles before, it can become very apparent. If you hold your boundaries, if you hold strong, or even if you just say, you know, I want to think about this a little bit. I don't want to go back to you just now. I want to think about it a little bit. In most cases, especially when we're talking about a romantic relationship, they're on to the next. You can go ahead and think it over. You can decide the next day, okay, yeah, I want to give this person another chance. Go back to the person, but they're over it already. They're on to the next. It's evidence that they did not really care about you as a person in the first place. And you deserve better than that. We all deserve better than that. So let's say you are fresh out of a discard and you're trying to pick up the pieces and you're doing all the right stuff. You're focusing on yourself. You're focusing on self-love and setting boundaries. It's important to recognize that this isn't going to happen overnight. And in many cases, the narcissist comes back when we're on this journey, when we're figuring things out and working on ourselves. And they do this for a reason. It's about control. But there's something I want to say to those of you who may be dealing with that right now. So the first thing I want to say is that if you were the one to decide that's it, I'm going no contact, I am done with this person, and you discarded, that right there should be ammunition enough for you to keep going, for you to keep on your path. Because I can tell you from my own personal experience and from all the research I've done on this, I have read many stories that go exactly the same as mine. When you discard a narcissist first, you're hurting their ego. And when they come back on a Hoover, oftentimes it may be a little bit about supply, but it's also a little bit about revenge. It's dangerous to take a narcissist back after you've been the one to discard, because at that point they have something to prove. And not only will they discard you again, but it will be brutal. If you're dealing with a narcissist, there's usually some form of punishment that comes from discarding a narcissist if you make the mistake of taking that person back. So the second point I want to make to all of you who may be working on yourselves and dealing with a hoovering narcissist is you will have a choice to make. You've already started making it. You've already started to choose yourself, but it's a very clear-cut decision. You can choose yourself and continue choosing yourself, or you can choose this other person. And that is not a decision that anyone should have to make in a healthy relationship. But it is a decision you have to make if you're deciding whether to get involved with a narcissist again. Just think about how you felt when you were in a relationship with this person. I can tell you for me, it happened gradually, but I felt like I lost myself. I got swept away in trying to please this person, which is an impossible task. So if you know you're dealing with a narcissist, or if you have strong suspicions, if you know you're dealing with somebody who's been emotionally abusive to you, and you've been hoovered before, you fell into the trap, the choice you have is you or them. It is that simple. Okay, so if the narcissist stops hoovering, has their opinion of you really changed? And the answer to that is probably yes. Their opinion of you probably has changed, but that's not a bad thing. Because their opinion of you before was that they could walk all over your boundaries. You were somebody that they could manipulate. And if they stop hoovering you, there's a good chance it's because they've decided that you're not somebody they could manipulate anymore. When you work on yourself, you're building yourself up, you're getting stronger. And then a narcissist is not going to like that. Think of the vulture. Do you find vultures around healthy animals? You don't, not usually. But when an animal is hurt, weak, sick, vulnerable, you may find a few vultures around because they're just waiting to exploit that vulnerability. So you can kind of think of a hoovering narcissist the same way. If they're not coming around, it's a really good sign for you. It's more than just knowing that you're not going to have to deal with whatever you dealt with in the past with this person. It's knowing that you're on a path towards becoming a healthier person yourself. And that's pretty awesome. Okay, so what about new supply? I hear a lot of times that people worry that the narcissist isn't hoovering because they have new supply. But I can tell you that most narcissists do not have any problem with cheating. They don't have problems with discards. So a person who is just a pawn to a narcissist isn't going to stand in the way of them going back to old supply if that's a habit that they've established. But for the most part, it's all about what benefits the narcissist. There really isn't better or worse. It all ends up the same way in the end. So those are my thoughts on why a narcissist stops hoovering. If you like this video, please let me know by hitting the like button. And if you want to see more like it, be sure you're subscribed, and I will see you next time.